Good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Weishuhn. If you enjoy real-world hunting and fishing talk, you're really going to enjoy listening to my good friend, Luke Clayton, and his guest for the next hour.
This is Dustin Vaughn Warnke, producer of this fine show that's been airing for the past 20 years. Welcome to Outdoors with Luke Clayton and Friends. Luke has been a recognized outdoor writer for the past 4 decades and writes for a whole host of outdoor publications. Luke pens a weekly outdoors column that appears in over 50 Texas newspapers, and he's lived the outdoor lifestyle since childhood. Luke partners with such companies as Pyramid Air, the ultimate source for air guns and outdoor essentials, CVA muzzleloaders, and their fine line of CVA Cascade centerfire rifles, Smoke and Tex electric smokers, ATN thermal scopes and binoculars, the Choctaw Hunting Lodge in southeast Oklahoma, owned by the Choctaw Nation, Butcher Packer Supply, everything for the home butcher and sausage maker, the Dallas Safari Club at biggame.org, and the Saskatchewan Department of Tourism. Now, here's Luke to kick things off with his longtime friend, Larry Weishuhn.
And friends, it is your old buddy Luke Clayton, and our buddy Mr. Larry Weishuhn is with us right here. We're going to have some fun talking with Larry about who knows what. Larry, thank you for being here. Thanks for being with us again, buddy.
Luke, it is always a pleasure. Of course, in my essence, it's DSC, Conservation Education, Hunter Advocacy, Taurus, who makes the Raging Hunter handguns that I really like, Stealth Vision, which makes some absolutely fantastic hunting optics, and then, of course, Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable. And, Luke, I've been the last couple of days at the Texas Wildlife Association convention here at the JW Marriott in the northern part of San Antonio. This is our 41st anniversary as far as the convention in years concerned. 2 friends of mine, Gary Machen and Murphy Ray, and I started Texas Wildlife Association back in 1985. And this Saturday night, we have got a grand auction going on, and actually, I've got 2 items in the grand auction. One is a 300 Savage Model 99 that I've had for a whole bunch of years. And usually what I do every year is I do a drawing or 2, and then we have that engraved on the rifle on the receiver. And of course, that Model 99 is with that nice receiver that it has with a slick sides, lends itself very, very nicely to that. And it's on sale tonight, or go up on the auction tonight. And it's in a 300 Savage. It's a great, great old gun. I want to come back to that in just a little bit. And then the other old thing that I've got in the auction is one of my brown Western hats.
Yeah.
Over the years, we did this one time years ago at a Texas Wildlife Association convention. Sold that hat for like $4,000, $4,500. I think it was $5,000 now that I think about it. This is a hat that I have worn all over the world. And like I say, it'll go for sale tonight at our live auction. Now, if people can't be there, and I know that a lot of folks can't, but they can go to onlinehuntingauctions.com, look up the Texas Wildlife Association little icon, and they can bid on that. And the other thing that's really good about the TWA convention is with their auctions is we put hunts up that you can't go on any other way unless you're invited by the landowner. It's a lot of private land involved with our organization. And so, the only way we can get onto those ranches is to be invited or to buy the auction items. So really invite people to go to onlinehuntingauctions.com today and bid on those 2 items that I just mentioned and a whole bunch of others. Old guns. I want to come back to that. I'm here talking with a bunch of people that I've known for a long time. And one of the discussions we had yesterday sitting around the coffee table real early in the morning is some of the old guns that we've hunted with in the past. And of course, I've got a bunch of old Model 94s, and I've got an old Model Winchester 95. My other lever action that I have now still is I've got a couple of the Savage Model 99s. But there was another one that I used a long time ago as well too. It was a 243. I don't have it. It was my father-in-law's, Ed Potter's firearm, and it was a Winchester Model 88. Really cool looking gun for the time.
Yep, that Model 88 is that was my hunting rifle back when I was in my later teens and through my 20s. I did not have an arsenal of deer rifles. I mean, I had one. I graduated, and I say graduated. I will say I used a 30-30 Marlin 336C for through my upper teenage years and for deer hunting and then later for hogs, a lot of hog hunting and into my 20s. But I was probably it was a family gun, a Winchester Model 88, and this one was made in 1957. I've still got it.
Oh man!
My uncle and aunt owned a ranch down in Three Rivers. And then I hunted a lot, not so much there, but over near your stomping grounds around Hockley and Waller down in there. Well, about that time, my aunt and my uncle had passed away. My aunt gave me that rifle, and my mother had killed a deer with it. That's amazing. And but they bought it. I think it was actually bought from my cousin back probably around 1960s. If I'm guessing, that's within a few years. And he was just a youngster. But anyway, it went down through attrition, if not through the family and members. And I wound up with it in when about, I guess, I don't know, around give or take 1980. I never will forget, Larry. I've read about a 243, and, it was just killer round, awesome, and compared to, and there's your 200-yard gun. And I thought, well, I didn't remember shooting my 30-30 at deer at 200 yards. I could have, looking back. I know it was capable, but I thought, man, I've got one now that I thought I had so much confidence in that little rifle, and I had it topped with a pretty good scope back in the day, and I hunted with it until probably, for that was my go-to rifle for a long time. Stacked up a lot of deer with it and hogs, and even I shot my first wild turkey with that little rifle,
Really?
I did, up in Jack County. But that's a good caliber, 243, and those old guns, and that thing today, I went through a period, this may help some of our listeners too. I went through a period with that gun back when it was my go-to gun, I don't know, years ago. The group started opening up, and it was always an accurate rifle. And a gunsmith, Chapman is his name, Mr. Chapman down in Buffalo, Texas. He was a well-known old gunsmith. He said, the barrel, I said, sir, I think the barrel is shot out. He said, I don't think so, but he said, I think it's just lead. He asked me how I'd cleaned it, and I didn't Hoppy's bore solvent, once a year,
Right.
So, and he said, let me have it and keep it for several weeks, and I've got some solvent. I'm going to brush it every day. And he did. He kept it, and about 3 weeks later, he called and he said, Luke, your rifle's shooting good. So, people with old rifles, this is something I learned. You've heard the term shot out. The barrel's been shot. I guess that can happen, but I didn't think it happened with that rifle. I mean, I might have shot a box of shells every 2 years through it, sighted in and hunt with it. And that's the way it was used prior to me getting it. But, he brought it right back. And I've got an article planned for the Gun Digest next year with that.
Oh, cool.
I was telling you a little bit about it, but Phil Massaro, the editor there, he thought that'd make an interesting article. The old gun brought back to a state where you could actually felt confident hunting with it. So, and then that's a good old rifle. I think it was made in 308 and 243 and 284, some other caliber. I forget what.
It seemed like there may have been a 284 involved in that.
Yeah, those three.
Really kind of a cool 7mm cartridge. You don't ever hear anything about anymore. But I shot antelope and shot whitetail deer and coyotes and that kind of thing. A few exotics. I used it for a while, a collection rifle many, many years ago, and I was working wildlife diseases. But that's going to make a really cool article. You can bring that one next time we get over to the cotton.
I will.
And we'll do some shooting with it. And if you need somebody to photograph while you're shooting, I'll be happy to do so, because that's a cool old rifle. It's interesting looking, very classy looking as far as I'm concerned.
And it's got the rotating bolt on it, which is,
the rotating magazine, or whatever you're going to call it. Thing. That is a really cool gun. And you're right. So very often you hear people say, well, my barrel shot out. Well, in most instances, with exception of some of the more modern type cartridges, you'd have to run thousands of rounds through a barrel for it to actually shoot out, unless there was, a problem with the barrel to start with. But a lot of times, really good cleaning, and now we've got solvents that will take that lid out, sometimes a copper that you didn't have a long time ago. And so, if you have an old rifle and you hadn't used it, my gosh, grab that thing and go get you some good Hornady ammo and a good cleaning kit and clean that thing out. And I think you'll be surprised how well they'll shoot.
I know. Well, you mentioned us getting together at our friend the Cotton's place. I've got 6 boxes of Hornady. And we know the ammo. We just need to see if that gun's going to work still. But I haven't shot this gun in, I don't know, Larry, a long time, over a decade, maybe closer to, 13, 14 years ago. So we'll get it out, and I'll run a patch or two through it and make sure the barrel's, dry and all that. And we'll put some of this Hornady to work over at the Cottons. It'll be fun, too, just see what it'll do, Yeah,
absolutely. We've got a 100-yard target, and there's one at 350, and then we get that thing tuned in a little bit. We'll see how it does even out to 500, just for the fun of it. Not that
I know.
We're shooting anything that far.
I know.
But at the same time, ruin that gong at 500 yards with whatever you're shooting. That's really kind of fun when you hear that.
Hey,
sound getting back at you.
that would be good, folks. Larry's probably at some no telling what back in the woods somewhere. We've got a pretty good connection, Larry. Not the best we've ever had, so occasionally folks might hear a little bit of a whatever happens when you're recording like this, but we've got a good strong signal right now. Let's come back, Larry. I want you to come back and let's me and you talk about let's you point out some of the older calibers that are still as good as they ever were, and maybe we'll get some people to dust off some of these old rifles and start hunting with them again. How about that?
Luke, that would be a pleasure.
Well, friends, Mr. Larry Weishuhn is going to tell you about the finest hunting optics that we have ever found.
Look, these are called Stealth Vision. They come from Crockett, Texas. Dr. John McCall developed them. They're 34 millimeter tubes as opposed to the narrower tubes, so more light transmission. They have a little green light that comes on. That scope is leveled because that's when you want to pull the trigger. They have an optional lighted reticle as well, too, and a whole lot of other products, and folks can learn more about them by going to stealthvision.com.
If you enjoy hunting, I want to hook you up with Ultramatic Feeders. You need to know about this company. The website is ultramaticfeeders.com. There are a one-shop stop for everything you need with hunting blinds. They have all kind of different brands of hunting blinds, game feeders, parts for feeders. Again, the website is ultramaticfeeders.com. And friends, I've been using Smoking Tex electric smokers for over 15 years, probably closer to 20 years. You can go online to smokingtex.com. They're not one of your throwaway electric smokers that you can find at some package stores. These things are made to last. I've got one that I've been using for, that length of time, probably 15 years. Check them out online, smokingtex.com. Well, friends, thanks for staying with us, and Mr. Weishuhn is still with us. And we had so much fun talking about some of these old calibers in our campfire talk, our first segment, that I thought it'd be fun to get Larry back and talk about some of these old calibers that, a lot of you may have some of these rifles with these calibers in your gun safe or hanging up on the gun rack or something. We might want to think about breaking them out and hunting with them again. Larry, another one, thanks for staying with me, by the way, Larry.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, sir. Another, the Model 99 that you'd mentioned. That's a lot of those still around, and I dare say, probably a lot of people still hunting with them.
Luke, I did a little stuff on it in an article not too terribly long ago, and then a few other places, and it was amazing how many people still have the Model 99 Savage, which is oh my God, it's been around. It came out, right at the turn of the century kind of thing years ago. What was interesting about it is I dug through a bunch of old photographs that I was able to come up with, going back to when Pancho Villa was chasing people across the border and down on the border, and it was amazing the number of 2 or 3 different guns that they had. Of course, they had a bunch of those Winchesters, but they had a lot of Savage 99s. And then, you look at back then, there was one, you don't hardly see this one anymore. There was one called a 22 High Power, which was kind of a precursor to some of the more modern type 22 calibers that we have these days. But there's also one called, of course, 300 Savage it was one of the really popular, still is in a lot of different ways. And one called it 250 3000, which was a quarter bore 250 caliber that one of the first rounds that traveled over 3,000 feet per second. That one still shows up, occasionally as well too. And then there were a bunch of those, and they're classy looking rifles. They hadn't been made now, my gosh, probably in about 30 years or something like that, when Savage quit making them, which is an absolute shame. But those are around, and there's kind of a cult following among those of people using it. And I've got an old Winchester Model 95, which was Teddy Roosevelt's go-to lever action, and his was a 405 Winchester that he took to Africa, shot all kinds of things with, and I've got one of those in a Ruger number 1. But then too, my that I have, my not Model 99, is a 30 Government .6, which was one of the first 30 .6s, over 100 years old. The list goes on. Like the 4570 has been around since, that was the round that Custer's guys had. They had it in the Springfield, but with a little problem that was overboard on the chamber, and when they pulled the trigger, the softer brass that they had swelled, and they couldn't get the dead gum shell out, or the case out. But all that has changed. Another one that I dearly love and use a lot still today, of course, is like the 270 Winchester. It's been around now for almost 100 years. But the one that I really like and still use today is a 7x57 or 7mm Mauser or 275 Rigby, all the same round. That was actually one of the first smokeless powders cartridges that was done. And guy by the name of Walter Dalrymple Maitland Bell, called him Karamazov Bell, shot many, many elephants with that round back in the years of the early 1900s. But, and the 30-30, I mean, it's old. You start thinking about those. Of course, the cool thing about 30-30 is these days, with most of them a lot of them have a tubular magazine, so you couldn't use pointed bullets because of potential recoil setting off the bullet in front of it. But with Hornady lever evolution. I'll get it spit out in a minute.
Yep.
I mean,
it's
amazing what you can do with some of those tubular type old lever actions that magazines that with the modern bullets that we have and the modern loads we have, particularly coming out of the Hornady.
I know, Larry. A 30-30. Honestly, I never, when I was growing up, a teenager, I didn't really get one until I was into my teens, a 30-30. But that Marlin 336C, I never will forget. I was thinking, okay, this is maybe a 100-yard gun. It shot as I recall, the one I had, I never had the really good scopes on it, but I could keep it in about a 2-inch group all the time at 100 yards, and with a good scope and all that, I'm quite sure it would have shot a minute of angle. I bet it would have, 1.5-inch group anyway. So that gun, I thought, it's a 100-yard gun. Truthfully, later on in life, with a quality scope mounted properly and all that, I took the not that particular 336C, but I've took Marlin 30-30s I'm sure Winchester do the same thing. Shot them out to 200, quite ample for hunting deer at 200 yards, But I never really knew that. I always thought of it, so everybody's, 100-yard gun. But 30-30, I'm not sure you could, I don't know. What do you think, Larry? You could push that out to maybe 250 yards once you knew what it was doing, where it was hitting and all that, had it sighted in properly. Probably that old 30 Marlin 336 would have been a longer range. To me, that would have been a long range back in the day,
You know what? You're right. So I get tickled until fairly recently. People occasionally shot longer ranges, particularly out west. And, most of the deer hunting, talking about whitetail hunting, was done in the eastern 2/3 of the country.
Yep.
There basically, a lot of folks were still using shotguns and 30-30 and like the old 35 Remington. And
yep.
Oh my God, there's a bunch of those that are actually still around. But you mentioned the 30-30. I used to have one I still do. It's in a Thompson Center Contender with a 14-inch barrel, and I remember shooting that thing, and I've shot does with it out even with that handgun version out to about 175 yards. That little short barrel was extremely accurate. It still produced enough downrange energy where you could put that animal down very quickly and humanely, kind of thing. And but yeah, there's so many of those older cartridges. Of course, now there's this proliferation of new cartridges. Seems like every day I see something about a new round. But all those old rounds that you go back like 30-06, or even I've got several of them in different guns, but that are in the older rounds, like 300 Holland Magnum. That was really one of the first 300 Magnums that was out there. All those are still absolutely fantastic guns, and there's still ammo around. And if you got one of those older guns and you hadn't used it in a long time, I strongly suggest taking it out and trying it. Too, in the last few years, we've seen a lot more interest again, thankfully, in some of the old lever actions. And when Ruger bought Marlin and they came out with the new guns, I mean, my gosh, they still can't build them fast enough. So that's a really cool thing that I think is happening, is starting to see some of those older guns come back, the older gun styles, and particularly the older rounds as well too. So if you got one, get out there and shoot it.
That's right. A lot of fun. I had a friend, Dub Wallace, and I think Dub had spent a little bit of time around some of the shows. Dub passed away years ago. You know the gentleman I'm talking about.
Yes,
but
sir.
Dub had and I'm not an expert, or I'm very weak in my knowledge of these particular rifles, but he had some old rifles that he would name the caliber 32 something, calibers that you just don't hear about or read about. I don't know. He'd had these old guns forever. He said, "Oh yeah, of course Dub was near 80, when he when he was out hunting with me, he was 80." So, he would say, "Oh yeah, son, this thing is a 32 whatever." And I said, "Dub, I've never seen or heard of that, But he had a bunch of those, and he would hand load these things,
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
But I wouldn't start to try to even mention some of those old calibers, but they weren't. You just didn't read about them or hear about them. But I guess back in his day, he did. He hunted with them. So
yeah, a lot of those became popular particularly after you had smokeless powder. So we're talking about the very late 1800s, particularly the early 1900s. There was oh my gosh, there were like 3220 and 32 special, and the list goes on and on, kind of thing.
3220. Okay, now where are you gonna? He had one, and I saw him shoot it quite a bit. He knew how to shoot it too. 3220. I don't know. I guess he hand loaded all those bullets for it. I don't know. I don't know if you could still buy them. Probably specialty places you could. Maybe.
I think through the 50s and 60s, you could still every once in a while. There were several of them, and I know. Again, I come back to Hornady. Hornady still to this day loads a lot of some of the older ones. They don't do it very often. They'll have kind of a limited run, but if you kind of look, you can come up with enough ammo to last you a couple years at least of
stock
hunting
up.
and shooting.
You bet. Well, Larry, it's been fun, man. As we always do, we'll have an outline what we want to talk about, and this time we actually kind of stayed with our outline, talking about old rifles. But fascinating subject, and I'm looking forward to. I'm gonna shoot a deer or two with this 243, and need some pictures for that article for Gun Digest,
Absolutely.
and hopefully our Stealth Vision scopes, which you and I are. I mean, there's no better scope in the world. I wish I had a Stealth Vision scope back on that old 243 25, 30 years ago. No telling, I might have been shooting deer way out there. Larry, we're out of time, buddy. Thank you for being with us. And next week, we're going to have some more fun and talking about who knows what.
Yep. Absolutely. We'll see everybody at the DSC Summer Expo, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th of this month.
Friends, this is Luke. If you're looking to refinance a mortgage or maybe buy some rural land or whatever, I want to recommend to you a company that I've had some stellar dealings with. It's Green Lending. Now, you can go online to greenlending.com. I'm going to give you the name of a guy that helped me tremendously, Jack Hamill. And I'm going to give you Jack's number. Give Jack a call if you want to refinance or you want to buy some rural land or whatever. Jack's number there at Green Lending is 440-223-2086. Or just go to greenlending.com and check it out. It's a great company. I had some wonderful dealings with them, and most of it was done online.
Big Sam left Seattle in the year of 92 with George Pratt, his partner, and brother Billy too.
Friends, this segment is made possible by Platinum Cadillac and Chevrolet in Terrell, Texas. Stop by and visit with my buddy, Mr. Justin Rudd, and his team of experts, and let them put you in a new Chevy pickup or a Cadillac or whatever you might be in the market for. Also, the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma. Check them out at ChoctawHuntingLodge.com. Also made possible by Pyramid Air, your one-stop shop for everything airgun related. Well, friends, when you hear about Lake Fork, you think first bass. Yeah, it's a heck of a bass lake. And in the last many years, it's become quite a crappie lake. But I'm going to tell you, and I have followed catfishing closely for a long time, in Texas especially, for a place to catch big channel catfish, bigger than most lakes, I don't think you can beat Lake Fork, and I believe that to be a true statement. David Hansen has been guiding on Fork for several years. He's guided, most people know David through his guiding trips down at Lake Tawakoni. Been doing that for a quarter of a century. Guess who's on the phone? David? Thank you for being here, buddy.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Luke. That's what we do.
That's
eat,
what
sleep, and talk about fishing.
And eat fish on the side when we're not doing all that, right? Yep. Well, I think it's a true statement, David. Lake Fork, and folks, if you're listening to the radio stations, you know where Lake Fork is. But if you're listening to a podcast up in Bangor, Maine somewhere, this show becomes a podcast after all of our great radio stations run it. Lake Fork is an hour and 15 minutes from Dallas. It's the big bass capital of Texas, but it's a catfish, kind of a secret honey hole in a way for big channel catfish. David, I've been seeing those pictures that you post on social media, a bunch of gallon bags of those. Have to be some chunky channel catfish to make all those fillets, man. You've been catching them, haven't you?
Oh yeah, it's just immediately when you drop it in the water, you're catching fish, and you've got some throwbacks. Down there under a pound and a quarter. That's too little.
I know.
So we just, I bet we caught 150 fish total this past trip, and had some up to 5 and 6 pounds.
Yeah.
Which, most lakes fishing the way we're fishing, if you catch one over at Tawakoni weigh 5 or 6 pounds anymore, you've done something.
That's true, and not just Tawakoni, but most lakes,
Mm-hmm.
And not to say a 5 or 6 pound channel catfish caught on a rod and reel that's a good one, but the truth is, over there at Fork, and I fished with David several times at Fork this time of the years, and to catch a 2 to 4 pounder, I don't know, 3, 5 pounder, those are not uncommon. They're kind of the
regular.
Yeah, regular. They're regulars, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Well, tell us about some tips that may help somebody. We're going to leave David's number, and if you're up in the North Texas area and you want to go catch a bunch of hard fighting channel catfish, David can put you on them. Tell us, how are you fishing? Shallow or deep or what?
We're fishing, about 18 foot of water. Of course, the hole's baited.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I have found down there is of a morning when I'm waiting on my customers, right at daylight,
yep,
I'm sitting in about 8 to 10 foot of water. And I'm just sitting there catching channel cat till they get there without any chum or anything. It is amazing. I've caught 5 and 6 pounders sitting there waiting on them, and, up in less than 10 foot of water. So anywhere you fish on the lake, you're going to catch fish. It may take a little while to get them started because it's not a baited hole.
Yep.
But 30 minutes just with punch bait, and you'll start catching fish.
Now, so when you're fishing that deeper water, I guess, are you using like a Santee rig, or are you just straight down, I guess?
No, man, I just use the straight down rig. I do it as cheap as possible.
Yeah.
I use 30-pound braid on ultralight, real sensitive rods,
mm-hmm.
but I put that 30-pound braid on them for those bigger fish, and you can just feel the bigger ones tend to bite like they're just barely touching it. Until you figure that out, you'll catch a bunch of little ones.
Okay.
But once you figure out that, you got to wait till you see that rod tip just barely twitching and just pick up on it. And if it's heavy, go ahead. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
And we've caught probably, I'm going to say 15 fish down there in the last year or two, over 15 pounds up to 17.
Yeah, yep. David, I grew up fishing for channel catfish up in northeast Texas and southeastern Oklahoma. We used to go up there every 9 weeks. My dad was a poultry farmer. When he sold those 14,000 chickens, we headed catfishing. But, I grew up catching channel catfish. And the only blue catfish around, we didn't fish the Red River, but we lived about 12 miles from the Red. That's where the blue catfish were. But
Mm-hmm.
but now, what point I'm trying to make and get your opinion, if a channel catfish grew to the size of these blues in lakes such as Tawakoni, you'd have to have a winch and block and tackle to hold them. They fight harder to me, pound for pound. What do you think? Is that true or not?
I 100% agree. The channel cat, the big ones I've caught, you'd think, oh my Lord, this is fighting like a 50-pound blue.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, and even a 3 or 4 pounder, he just they put up a battle. Okay, so I always like to hit the fine points, David, when I get you on, because you have fished for catfish all your life and you've guided over a quarter of a century, guided catfish trips. I've fished with you 1,000 times, maybe not 1,000, but a bunch of times. There's a question, a fine point. Okay, channel catfish, I call it fat. I've read that it's not really fat. I don't know what it is. But the bigger ones have a tendency to have a little yellow streak around the outside of the fillet. I always cut that. Just takes 3 seconds. When I'm filleting one, I'll cut that off. Does that make a difference in the? Do you think that is a fat line, or you know exactly what I'm talking about? But do you think it's a factor in the fillet, the taste of it?
That itself, that there's to me. We grew up skinning fish.
Yes.
Okay, when you pull that skin off on the middle of that channel cat's back, there's a definite line. If he's 2 pounds, it's 1/4 inch wide.
Mm-hmm.
It may be bigger. The bigger they are, smaller.
Yep.
But there's an actual line runs right down the top of his spine.
It is.
That is the only fat that we ever cut out of those fish.
Yes. Yep.
And it did not include that yellow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That yellow is what gives that channel cat its distinct flavor.
Okay, and that is located more or less the opposite side of the fillet from the top, isn't it? More or less, it's quite a ways from. Yeah.
Right on top, if you split that fillet, when you take those fillets off, there'll be a discolored piece on one side or the other.
Yep.
And I just trim that little piece. It's opposite. It's different color than the yellow.
Yes, it is. Right. Yep. So.
And we always took a knife and trimmed down both sides of it and peeled it out with skinning pliers.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then, that's the only. Now, I have caught some bigger channel cat that were in back when fork was years ago, when it was full of hydrilla. Now they wouldn't be fit to eat because they'd have so much of that mess in them. You couldn't get it out of the meat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
But that's been years ago.
Right.
And most of the time you're not going to have a fat buildup like you do on a blue cat.
Okay, that's kind of what I was along the lines. What I was curious about. I remember a warm water lake, Lake Monticello, that used to be a public lake. I used to have a buddy an old guy that used to guide down there for catfish, and those fish, you catch a ton of them in the deep river channel. Believe it or not, at 40 foot of water in the wintertime. The channel, but they were not. I was all about eating catfish, but those were the same thing. Now I know they were eating all that hydrilla or whatever vegetation. Yep. So a good punch bait that'll stay on the hook. That's it, right?
Yes, sir. It doesn't matter whose it is.
Yep.
As long as it stays on the hook, and you get it down there, get a couple of hits, pull it up, get you some more if you didn't catch a fish.
That's it.
And I don't like to use a big treble hook. I use what is it?
6.
6. It's not that 4 is just a little too big, so I go down to a 6, and I use cheap hooks. A lot of people use those 3 times strong, 2 times strong.
Yeah.
There's no sense in that, because with the cheap hooks and braid, when you get hung up, you just reach down there and tug it a little bit, and it'll straighten that hook out, pull it back up, straighten that hook, go back fishing.
Yeah. Yes, I think most people use number 6 over 4s. I do believe that most people, but I will say this: using a number 6 hook, you have your little pair of needle nose or maybe some hemostats to do some surgery, get those hooks out of there, because it is they're gonna take those hooks down. Some of them. David, we could spend hours talking about catfishing, and I've always learned something when I fish with you or get the privilege of visiting with you on the radio here. But folks that want to come and catch a bunch of catfish at Lake Fork, how do they call you? Just leave your number. Maybe someone interested in the trip could give you a buzz.
You can reach me anytime at 903-268-7391.
Okay, David. And folks, remember, if you need to contact anybody that's ever a guest of mine, you can just go to catfishradio.org, email Luke, and some of you do that. I'll give you David's number. David, thank you a lot, buddy. I'll let you get back to jerking them big old Lake Fork catfish out. How about that?
All right, man. Sounds good.
Folks, I want to tell you about one of my long-term partners, and that is Pyramid Air. The website is pyrmydair.com. They're a one-stop shop for everything airgun related. Big bores, little bores, PCP guns, springers, you name it. All different brands, some great airgun supplies, but also a whole lot more. Archery, ammo, optics, shooting and outdoor gear, action sports, all this stuff can be found right there and ordered through Pyramid Air. So remember, go online to pyrmydair.com.
The snowflakes fall as winter comes, and time just seems to fly.
Friends, I've been shooting and hunting with CVA muzzleloaders a long time. They are, in my opinion, the best muzzleloaders on the market. But did you know CVA also makes a very fine line of centerfire rifles, built to last and super accurate? Been hunting with those for several years. Check them both out, the muzzleloaders and the centerfires, online at cva.com. Folks, I want to introduce you to some good friends of mine at Dash for Cash Pawn Shop in Seagoville, Texas, located at 133 Hall Street. The phone number is 972-287-3121. Go by there and talk with Gary or Randy, the owner. They're great people. They've got some great prices. Again, that's the Dash for Cash Pawn Shop, Seagoville, Texas, 972-287-3121. Hi, friends. This is your old buddy Luke Clayton, and we have a little time in today's show for me to share a couple of easy camp recipes with you. The first one we're going to talk about is camp baked beans. Now, this is not something you're going to bake in the oven and take 2 hours to prepare. You can make this at camp. We're going to cook it in a cast iron skillet, and I guarantee you, if you take the time to do this pretty close to the way I'm going to tell you, your guests are going to love it, and you're going to have a new favorite bean recipe. So let's start with a cast iron skillet, and let's put a little olive oil in there. You could use bacon grease if you want to. You could fry a couple of 3 strips of bacon and use that. But whatever, usually for ease of operation, I usually use olive oil. Chop up a medium-sized onion, pretty fine, and throw it in there. A couple of jalapenos, seeded, remove the seeds, chop them up, throw them in there. Okay, there's your start right there. Put the heat on them and cook those a bit to where the onions are beginning to get translucent. And at that point, I'll throw a handful, maybe not a handful. I'll put about 5 or 6 chopped cloves of garlic in there. Chop it up pretty fine. Add the garlic at the end of it there. So you've got your veggies in the skillet cooked pretty much. Now we want to put beans. Now, you can cook little navy white beans if you want to go to the trouble, but this is a camp recipe. Why do that? Just buy some what I call cheap, no-name, or maybe not the most popular canned baked beans. Some of them are pretty almost acceptable, the canned baked beans, but don't buy those. You don't want to use those. Use the bland, basic baked beans, dollar store beans, if you will, whatever. Pork and beans will work, but I like to use the ones that they call baked beans. They're really not, in my opinion. But anyway, throw a couple of cans of those in there, bring it all back up to temperature, and you'll want to add at least a can of water in there with it and stir that around. You want these to cook for a while. At this point, go ahead and put you a handful of dark brown sugar in there. Don't go skimpy on the dark brown sugar. That's going to give it a lot more flavor. Stir that in real good. Dissolve that into the moisture there. And then basically put a little barbecue sauce in there, your favorite type of barbecue sauce. Not a whole bunch, but, enough to give it a little barbecue flavor. And stir all that together and cut it down real low. And let that cook for, 20 minutes. Let it bubble along and reduce some of that water. Folks, I'm going to tell you that is some of the best baked beans. Now, a lot of times I like smoked venison sausage, venison and pork. I'll make it some too. But a lot of times I'll slice up some of that, throw 2 or 3 links in there while it's cooking. And that adds a little more to it, Of course, you can, if the bacon, you can fry bacon in the beginning. If you want bacon in it instead of the sliced links, you can do that. But I pretty much guarantee your guests are going to like this, and you're going to get a new recipe that you like. Give it a try, and let me know. You can email me through catfishradio.org. The email is there. Send me a note. Let me know what you think about that. Now, I bet you've got some venison down in the bottom of that freezer somewhere underneath some stuff. Take a couple of packages of ham steak or backstrap, whatever you want to use, whatever you've got, really, and slice it real thin. We're going to make a stir fry, and one that's easy to make at camp, and you're going to enjoy it, I promise. So slice it up real thin, and get a Ziploc bag, dump it in the bag, and then get you some Kikkomans stir-fry sauce. You can buy it anywhere. Walmart, it's easy to find. But it's Kikkoman stir-fry sauce. Put that liberal amount of that in there. And then I like to add some soy sauce, too, about this time. Now, zip the Ziploc bag up, throw it in the back of your refrigerator, and let it stay in there at least 24 hours. Sometimes I'll let mine stay 2 days. But you want that meat to be marinated with all those flavors. And then it gets really simple. Now, you can take that to camp with you. Say you're camped out at the lake in the summertime or deer camp in the fall, whatever, and you want a quick meal, a healthy meal, stir fry. So then it gets pretty basic. Now I've got one of these Lodge, cast iron woks, but you can use a cast iron skillet or just about anything to make this, the stir fry. Put a little. I like to use a little more olive oil in there. And put your marinated venison. You can use marinated pork if you want to. The finished product's going to taste a lot the same and just as tasty. But put your marinated meat in there and cook it till it's almost done. It won't take long. On high, cook it for maybe 5 minutes. It'll be really done, but it'll get a little bit more done when you add the veggies. So then I like to, for the stir fry, always have some little broccoli crowns. I like to put broccoli in it. I like to add a little bit of finely cut carrot, little celery if you like celery. Basically things that you like. Mushrooms, you can put you some mushrooms in there if you want to. Jalapeno pepper or bell pepper. I like to use jalapeno in my stir fry. And, get it all that mixed in. Use your spoon, mix the meat in there with it. At this point, I like to add some more while the veggies are getting crisp. You don't want to get them too done. But while they're cooking, I like to add a little more stir-fry sauce to it, stir it all together. Throw a handful of peanuts, the skinned peanuts, or cashews, whatever you like that. I think that adds a lot to a stir fry. Throw that in there during the latter few minutes of the cooking, and bingo, there's a meal for several of you right there for camp. What I would do next is I like to cook the jasmine rice ahead of time. Have a bed of jasmine rice and put that stir-fried venison on there. There's a meal that you and your guests around camp are going to probably start cooking a lot. You can do most of the prep at home. You can even a lot of times I'll chop my veggies, cut them up, and have them ready. All I have to do is dump them in there on the meat when it's cooking. Folks, thank you for tuning in. We've been doing this show now for 20 and one half years. I've enjoyed it a lot. I enjoy it today as much as ever. I want to thank all the radio stations that run it. They could use any outdoor show that they want, but they choose our old Catfish Radio, and many of them have been doing this for many years. But thank you to all the radio stations and owners and the people that plug this in. I greatly appreciate it. I get kidded a lot, or I used to. Well, do you do a podcast, Luke? And I say, used to, I didn't. This was not a podcast, but I'd say, no, I do a real radio show that's on a whole bunch of radio stations. Well, I thought you did a podcast. Anyway, now after our great radio stations run this show, folks, it becomes a podcast, and you can hear it wherever podcasts are listened. But first and foremost, you are listening to a real radio show. Folks, thanks for listening. Next week, we're going to have some more fun. Make sure and tune back in. Friends, I hope you've enjoyed our show. This is our 20th year to be doing Catfish Radio, and I enjoy doing it now probably more than I did when I first began. It's lots of fun every week. But I want to tell you about a destination, one of my favorite destinations, and it's the Choctaw Hunting Lodge. It's up in southeast Oklahoma, maybe an hour north of Paris. I don't think it's that far, but it's an awesome place. You can go online to ChoctawHuntingLodge.com and check it out. Beautiful lodge there, trophy deer hunting on thousands of acres of Choctaw tribal land up there. It's just if you ever go up there, you will return. A lot of eastern turkey in that part of the country, and probably our closest destination for many Texans to have a real chance to kill an eastern turkey. So that's got that going on. Exotic hunting, hog hunting. If you're an outdoor person, you'd love a visit there at the Choctaw Hunting Lodge. Folks, we are out of time. Make sure and tune in next week and be safe in the outdoors.